to win trophies. A wonderful win again, Emma beating Vondrousova. And Tyson Fury, my AJ call. He's teased a comeback. Back page of the Star. Up the top, they focus on Jack Draper shaving his legs, but we'll focus on Old Trafford. United primed to make a move for England ace Watkins. There you go, leg up and pants down. Leg up, Jack Draper shaving his leg. Pants down, Rishabh Pant caught by Zach Crawley. We'll get into all of that, but we're going to start with the football, gentlemen. We're going to start with Joao Pedro to Chelsea. It's been bubbling away for a while, but there's been real urgency this week because Chelsea want him to play in the Club World Cup on Friday night against Palmeiras. How well does he slot into this Chelsea team, do you think, Miguel?
I think he's an upgrade on what they've got there. I mean, it's an interesting one because I wouldn't necessarily have said Joao Pedro is absolutely the position that they needed to upgrade. But obviously, a lot of Chelsea's business has felt it over the last 3 years about constantly, incrementally improving the team. Also, to be fair, he offers a bit of, he's able to break the lines and offers a bit of impetus and urgency in a team that can occasionally be a little flat when I suppose they pursue Maresca's football to the absolute, to the absolute nth degree. So I think it's a good signing, if not an essential signing. And yeah, you would think he slots straight in because he's obviously a player that all the major clubs wanted after what had been a brilliant season for Brighton.
They've got so many options in attack, John. Does Joao Pedro go straight into a starting team for Chelsea for you?
I'm not sure, to be honest, Chris. I really don't. It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I'm at the Club World Cup, and I'll be there watching the game and covering the game on Friday night here, early hours of Saturday, back in UK. And it's remarkable actually that they kind of got this mini window between sort of kind of knockout and then between group stage and then knockout, and they're able to kind of close off this bit of business for Joao Pedro. Look, I like him. I really like him. I think he's a good player. I think it's a fine signing basically for 60 million quid, proven Premier League player, very versatile across the front. You know, he in his club interviews today, he was talking about his preferred position is as the main striker. But I do think also he can play particularly from the left, I think. So he has got that versatility. And frankly, he'll need it because Chelsea have got so many strikers, so many forwards, that you can't limit yourself to one, otherwise you won't get a game. And I have to say that's part of my issue with Chelsea right now. What's their identity? What is their best starting lineup? Can you really feel a familiarity with Chelsea? And that's part of the problem, I think, for Maresca, having to really juggle all these players, trying to get them all in one starting lineup. And I don't know whether we know what Chelsea's best starting lineup, apart from seeing Caicedo. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Cucurella, has really proven himself out here. I love Lavia alongside Caicedo. And there's other bits and pieces like that. But really, I just feel that if they've signed Colwill and, they've got this guy coming in, they've got that, you honestly lose track of how many forwards they've got. I mean, I see a few pieces today saying that they're basically aiming to start the season with 8 forwards. 8 forwards. We're back to kind of, not everyone squeezing into the Chelsea home dressing room. So I hope it works out for Joao Pedro, but I hope also that he doesn't get lost because he's far, far too good for that.
Yeah, it seems curious, doesn't it, Miguel? Because when Enzo Maresca took charge a year ago, he had too many players. He had to get rid of loads. And Chelsea did that, and they did that well, got back into the Champions League. But now all of a sudden it seems like they're in the same boat again.
Yeah, I mean, it does raise the question. I mean, I totally agree with John on that. But it raises the question on how, I mean, for a club that maybe, when one of the clubs in the Premier League that have had more noise about PSR than most, bar kind of 2 or 3 exceptions. And yet you do wonder, given that obviously they'd solve a lot of these issues, you do wonder whether this Chelsea hierarchy, do they just love the trading of players? Because I mean, that's what it looks like. It comes down to, and actually, so there's a phrase in the Premier League now called PSR churn that a lot of officials use because it's about how, in order to meet the restrictions, you have to constantly keep bringing players in and out just to ensure there's always this in terms of how contracts are amortized and all that to ensure clubs always stay in the limit. And you do wonder whether Chelsea have taken that policy to extreme degrees because even it's even the kind of type of signings they make. It feels like they've become almost addicted to making this certain type of kind of 30 to 60 million purchase, that isn't necessarily an absolute guarantee that's going to be guaranteed to improve the team. Like, say, for example, a Wirtz at Liverpool or Declan Rice at Arsenal, one of these really kind of top bracket signings. Instead, they're going for a lot of players and kind of maybe 2 brackets below a substantial price, but not kind of an outstanding price, and it just kind of creates this constant flow. And of course, the other side of it is they are going to need to make exits now before the season, and even John's 8 forwards notwithstanding, because there's just so many bodies there.
Yeah, I wonder what it means for Nicholas Jackson, Christopher Nkunku, ones that were already at the club before all these signings coming in. Staying on Chelsea, the focus in The Sun is that Joao Pedro wants to win trophies. John, you've done a feature on Levi Colwill, who talks about the rich tradition of trophies at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, a few of us spoke to him the other day, and he was really, really impressive, Levi Colwill. As impressive a talker as he is quite often as a player on the pitch, very classy player. Really talking about this winning culture, though. That was the thing. And Chelsea is a club only for winners. And he basically says it's now down to us. And bearing in mind, I think, what is he still sort of kind of 23 himself? He's setting the standard, basically. He's saying this generation of older players has to welcome in the younger players, bring them through and make sure that they have it in their DNA, basically, that the club is all about trophies and success. We've had a long history of it, and they have to be welcomed into that. He was incredibly gracious about the fans as well, saying that fans expect more, but also the fans really lay down that law. He was also talking about his own, perhaps, frailties as a player, and saying that he can get lazy, maybe hinting towards a lack of concentration at times. He has to up his game. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really interesting interview, actually, that sort of kind of, when it's nice when a player really thinks about what he wants to say and kind of really articulates it well. Colwill is sort of kind of a deep thinker, loves his Lego, has brought lots of Lego out here to the States to kind of fill the time, but also says, look, we're in it for the long haul. And now, if you look at the way that the draw has opened up for them, what have they got? They've now got a quarterfinal with Palmeiras, in Philly on Friday. And basically then, potentially Al Hilal, next up sort of in the semi-final, if you like. So they do have the easier side, looking side of the draw, and a real opportunity to go here and basically sort of potentially win the trophy, win the Club World Cup, which not only means silverware, but a £97 million jackpot, which will probably mean another striker.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? It's interesting, a rare honesty from Levi Colwill to talk about his own frailties. The defence, to me, seems to be the frailest unit within the Chelsea squad, Miguel. But him personally, Levi Colwill, big season, especially in a frail defence with a World Cup on the horizon. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's come in a context where maybe it hasn't felt like Tuchel with England has been completely willing to throw him in, and he's obviously he's already in Tuchel's few games so far. It looks like he's had a few favourites at centre half, but as you say, there's a World Cup on the horizon, and fair to Colwill, he's obviously he's almost put a little bit of pressure on himself for what he said. He's taken admirable responsibility, at least with his words, and now kind of almost created that incentive to step up. And if he does that, at the end of the season, there is the potential of not just a return to America, but actually a return, as like with Chelsea, a starting centre half, and I suppose you would hope maybe a trophy-winning centre half in all senses. I think that's another really interesting element from the interview, because I suppose it speaks to the evolving identity of Chelsea, exactly what John was getting at there. But right up to the end of the Abramovich era, which of course now, it ended because of a lot of serious non-football issues, but throughout his period, throughout that Abramovich ownership, the club would obviously become associated with just constantly knowing how to win trophies due to the culture set in the dressing room, set by some very expensive players. And even in seasons when Chelsea hadn't at their best, like 2012, they still had this capacity to go on and claim silverware. It's obviously something that's kind of been in the ether a little bit, or in the 3 years since Abramovich was sanctioned and they had the change of ownership. And it's interesting that Colwill now has such a focus on actually bringing that back, that's specifically what he's honed in on, especially as Maresca has obviously been such a kind of a tactical ideologue in terms of his running of the team.
Yeah, it's a nice piece, John. I enjoyed reading that about Levi Colwill. I know, even though you're out at the Club World Cup in America, you still have one eye on the All England Championships. You were watching Emma Raducanu earlier as she beat a former champion in straight sets. She called it one of her best matches. She was very impressive.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it was fantastic. I'm a huge tennis fan, and basically, tennis is almost my second sport, and I've absolutely loved it. And not just in the way that Raducanu dispatched her opponent today. We are talking about a former champion here. We are talking about a serious player, and Raducanu. Up until what? 2, 3 months ago, we were questioning fitness. We were questioning her. By her own admission, she was having a few issues, kind of from a mental perspective and being in the right frame of mind for major tournaments. And she just comes into Wimbledon. And it was brilliant to hear the crowd so energetic, so behind her, so passionate, really on board with it. And I just thought she was absolutely fantastic today. Really on top of her game, really decisive, really strong, sharp, and quick. Really looking excellent, playing some of the best tennis I think that I've seen since her famous US Open win, really. So, and then obviously sets up this incredible showdown in a couple of days' time against world number one Sabalenka, which I have to say, if Raducanu is all about momentum, is all about form carrying into progress in major tournaments like Wimbledon, then this is a really good omen to actually give her a fighting chance. Listen, she's going to be the outsider. We know this, but I really like the way that she even talked and sort of kind of conducted the interview afterwards and said, why not? I feel really good. I feel in the best form that I felt in for quite some time. So I'll give it my best shot. And basically, I feel really good, really confident. And instantly when Raducanu kind of feels good, because if she's not, she'll be honest and searingly honest enough to tell you whether that's a kind of, in a state of mind or kind of physical issue that's troubling her. But at the moment, she looks absolutely great. I think there's fewer better sights than Emma Raducanu on the back pages, smiling and looking victorious. She put up a V for victory in sort of some of the best pictures on the back pages. And I just think it looks absolutely fantastic. That's the epitome for me of a brilliant British summer.
Yeah, lovely. Just quick mention of the male's back page. She's Electric, using the Zeitgeist. Oasis, of course, back this weekend. That was one of their famous songs. She's using the electricity of centre court, and she might have to do that against the world number one. Right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in The Independent from a little-known writer called Miguel Delaney. They stole it from us. How Spain can reclaim their moment after the Luis Rubiales scandal. Do stay with us.
and what it does for his own sense of form as well. And yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, given the injuries, Farrell's clearly going to look for versatility. So you'd wonder if the worst does come to the worst, as we expect, he'll probably look for an equally versatile replacement, Tom Jordan or Jamie Osborne to come in.
Yeah, let's move back to the football. The Women's Euros is now underway. And Miguel, you've done a really nice focus piece on Spain, who lost in the final to England last time, but then beat them in the World Cup. It was Germany who lost in the final. They beat England in the World Cup final a couple of years ago. But the kiss that changed football and how they want to try and rewrite some wrongs here.
Yeah, so Spain play their first game, the world champions. They play their first game tomorrow against Portugal. And the mood in the team, well, there's two overriding feelings. One is the sense the players want to actually have a victory separate to all of that controversy, because, I mean, there's a brilliant new documentary that's come out that I actually touch on in the piece. It's called Se Acabó, basically Enough's Enough. This kind of phrase did the rounds after the Rubiales controversy. And like Aitana Bonmati, the best women's player in the world at the moment, she openly talks about how the World Cup was tarnished. Jenny Hermoso, the player Kiss, says she can't even think about the moment too much. Now, she's been controversially left out of this squad to show how some issues or some of the kind of themes have recurred a little bit. But generally, the players have mostly been listened to. There have been gradual changes. I mean, like, one of the remarkable details is, I suppose, while men's players like Sergio Ramos were willing to ask Rubiales for Hublot watches as part of their kind of like work for the national team, the women's team, up until very recently, were just asking about, fair flight times to allow them to properly prepare for big games. They have mostly been listening to that. Changes have been made. And the word around the squad right now is tranquility, as they hope to kind of maybe build on that World Cup win and have a win that the players themselves will feel is truly separate from all that and one in their own terms. And even kind of previous rebels, the 15 that spoke out about how the team was managed in 2022, two of them have come back and they feel in a good place. I mean, the argument is they probably are the best team in the world right now, but obviously England, who start their own campaign on Saturday against France, another favourite, will be hoping to maybe rectify things, given how they went in Sydney.
It seems like there's so much more than a football tournament to win for this Spanish national team, John.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is a story of redemption. I actually read Miguel's piece. It was really, really good piece, really interesting piece, and really interesting read. And now it's made me want to watch the documentary that he's written about as well. Yeah, I mean, look, for Serena Wiegmann and her players, it feels like it's been actually a long build up as well, and so I think it has got so much potential. I mean, England is such a difficult group, the group of death, really, with France and Holland and obviously Wales in there as well. So I think it's going to be a really exciting tournament. But I do think, because of what's happened with Spain and that history, I know what Miguel's saying there, enough is enough, but there will be that angle still, and kind of, them looking to kind of almost, sort of start a new chapter with more success in the future, really, to kind of right the wrongs of that. I do think it's got such potential, this tournament, to kind of really grip the nation, get everyone watching as they were, when England famously obviously had that wonderful day at Wembley. And I mean, that was a joy to cover and be there from my own point of view. And I'm sure that people will be watching this summer. And I do think that's the football tournament, I think, that will grip the nation, hopefully, this summer.
Do you make Spain favourites, Miguel?
Yeah, probably just about, just given the kind of the way they play. But I mean, they've had their own scare, and actually an echo of 2022, where on the eve of that tournament, when England beat them in the quarterfinals, their star player at the time, Alexia, she got injured and missed the tournament. On the eve of this one, then, there were fears in the Spanish camp as if history was occurring, because Aitana Bonmati actually contracted viral meningitis and was in hospital up until a few days ago. Now, remarkably, she returned to the Spanish camp yesterday to kind of, suppose, restore the optimism around them. And yeah, I probably would make them favourites, although I think there is a strong field in this. I'm going out to Switzerland tomorrow. My own first game is England-France. And I think that match will actually tell a lot about both teams and how the tournament's going to go.
That'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure you're going to enjoy that. Let's round off the show focusing on the Sun Sport, the top of the page story. Tyson Fury, my AJ call. Tyson Fury weighing up another comeback from another one of those retirements. He says it will be a travesty if he doesn't fight Anthony Joshua, John.
Yeah, I love it. You guys have been showing part of the interview, haven't you, tonight? And basically, I love, Tyson Fury when he gets talking. He's such an engaging kind of listen. I mean, we've had so many retirements, so many comebacks. And yet I do. So every time he does it, that basically think, well, he'll come back. I did think, I wonder whether the last one would actually be it. But of course, he can't resist it. And the thing that he trails, apart from kind of talking up, really wanting sort of a fair fight with Usyk, feeling wronged in the past, is a matchup with AJ. I mean, come on, that is a fight that a lot of people would want to see. It would be a proper grudge match, I think, and then also just something that the whole kind of country would tune into. I think he's got box office, an absolute sensational knockout fight, all about it, really. I'd love to see that one. But let's be honest, when Tyson Fury speaks, we all listen, and he's kind of irresistible box office. And I hope that he gets back into the ring. I think he should, and I think he will.
Would it damage legacies for Joshua, for Fury? They've both got losses on their records, Miguel, and if they were to fight, one of them is going to lose.
Probably not, I'd say, just because, I mean, what they've actually done at the core of their careers is always there. But as John says as well, kind of like it's the way they, and particularly Fury, can't appear to resist. I mean, that interview you showed just beforehand, where I think he had about, 5 or 6 hypotheticals, if I were to come back, if I was to think about it. And then kind of, the power broker in boxing at the moment and kind of representative of the Saudi state, who has been such controversial with influential factors in this, Turki Al-Sheikh just basically comes out and says he will be back.
Well, if Turki Al-Sheikh says it, Miguel, the money on the table usually means it happens, doesn't it? We are going to have to leave the programme there. John, Miguel, great to have you with us. If you missed any of the show, there is another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. It's also available as a podcast. Download Back Pages wherever you get your podcasts.